well, I am in Perth, Australia today, and I'm joined by Max Line from LGC Traffic and LGC Equipment Hire. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
Very good. So, look, we spoke a little bit over the past about a year or so, and we actually got to catch up in Sydney for the Hire 23 convention.
Yes.
And I know your story, but you've got quite a unique background because you were actually an end customer of the hire industry and eventually started your own hire business. So I'm pretty keen to share your story and get your perspective on why you started the business and whatnot. So I'll run through, I guess, what is LGC Traffic to begin with, and we'll get into the hire side.
Mate, I come from a family that had business. My uncle had business, my old man had business. And business was always interesting and always a driver, and it was something I always wanted to move into as I got older. I guess at the age of 22, you kind of think you know everything, and give me the ropes, let's go. So I started off and bought a small business at that time called Mandurah Traffic Management. There was only 2 vehicles, a handful of signage. It had no ongoing work, it had no ongoing concerns. So I bought that. Mandurah is an hour and a half out of Perth. So we bought that, moved it back to Perth, called it LGC, and LGC stands for Line Group of Companies. So the idea was always to build a multi-entity business or company, and become a market leader in anything that LGC does. So from that point, we started in 2 utes. We built that business. It took us a little while to get going and thumble as we weren't in that industry, and it was probably a good 11, 12 months before we started really picking up some traction and building that business. 2016, we opened a depot down in Busselton. That depot got to about 89 people. Then we closed that and moved on from there, moved it all back to Perth, and at that time had to restart the business as we found some fraud down in that Busselton region.
So before we continue, because I want to hear the story, but I know the audience probably has a few questions, so I'll ask the questions for them.
Okay.
So starting a business at 22 is pretty impressive in itself. We had someone from Canada that started a hire business when they were 19, which is ludicrous. I think you just out of school and you're jumping straight into it, but starting at 22 is still a very young age. Like, what was that like? Like, you just going not knowing what you're getting yourself into, or what was it like for the first year? Pretty
much. My old man sat me down and said, I'm not going to stop you getting into business, but you've got to be aware that your life's going to change if you move into business. There's going to be a lot more responsibility and a lot more asked from you. It was a big change. It was a big difference, and it was something that I probably wasn't aware of or maybe even ready for at that time. And I just kind of fumbled my way through it. We built LGC, changed a few things around, and now we've built LGC to be a premier, really a utility provider to our utility companies, if it's Western Power, Atco Gas, or...
Yeah, and so the first couple of employees, was it family, or what was it at the beginning?
No, I've always tried to keep family out. I've seen family in business, and it's never really worked. There's always the arguments. My relationship to family is quite important. I love my family dearly, and I always want to love them. I don't want to ever put something in between myself and my family and have that wedge. So it's always been, for me, what can I achieve by myself and how can I do it? I have had my middle brother work for us for a short period of time, and that just that just enforced why I don't employ family.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. I still talk to him almost every day, and still got a great relationship with him. But I want to go and achieve what I want to achieve for myself, and
So you mentioned you grew from 2 to 8 or 9 employees. You had an extra branch, and then that got shut down for. You mentioned before about fraud. So
yes.
So being 22 and watching the business grow to a certain point, and then seeing something like that happen where it's at a devastating point, like, what were you feeling at that moment? Ignoring the fraud part, like, what were you feeling at that point?
There was a lot of emotion. There was definitely a lot of emotion because it's something that I put my blood, sweat and tears into for the first 3 years or almost 4 years to create this business, and then you see it being kind of ripped out from underneath your feet, and there's nothing you can do because it's already all that stuff's happening. So now you've got to go and mitigate those risks and mitigate those controls that you can to rebuild that business and move forward. It was a very interesting time. It was a very stressful time, but I learnt a lot. And in that, I look back at it now, and I'm grateful that I've been through what I've been through, because it's my knowledge in business and the skill sets that time gave me in business has definitely helped myself and help LGC as a business grow to the leader that we are these days.
All right, so just for the audience, because I want them to understand how big your business is today, because I know your story, like going from 2 employees up to 89 and then scaling back, like how many employees does LGC Traffic have today?
Currently in the Perth metro area, we'll employ anywhere from about 220 to 250 employees. We also do have a branch down in Albany in the Great Southern. It's about 4.5 hours out of the Perth region. And down there we employ around 50 people in that region. It was a very interesting journey, scaling it back and then ramping it back up. But through that period of time, I learnt a lot. It was a quick lesson of a couple of years within business of how to mitigate your risks and how to control your risks and how to build. I don't think, if I hadn't been through that experience at that time, I don't think the business would be the size it is today. I enjoyed the business. I enjoy aspects of business, and I enjoy seeing what we can create as a business, and what we can get, how we can build a team to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And it was a very interesting time that time, but it's always onwards and upwards, and I'm not someone that's going to tap out. I'm going to come back swinging, I guess, and see what we can really create and build what we can build.
So the first question I had originally was, how did you feel when you started the business at 22? And then fast forward to today with 300 or so employees, like when you reflect back, like how do you feel today?
How do I feel today? I feel like any other person. It's been a job. It's been a job that I've created for myself, and then we've been able to create more workforce and more jobs for a workforce out there. Knowing that we're employing people, that's a pretty cool feeling. I enjoy that, and I enjoy seeing what we can build and how we can build that team. The feeling, I don't see. I have a chat to you and you go, wow, you've got a great story. I don't say it that way. I've lived it, I've dreamed it. I've been the person within that business, and to me, tomorrow's just another day. We're only ever here for a short period of time, and I've always, even when I was younger, it was always about what can I do in my working career? What can I build? When my expiry time's up, how am I going to be remembered? I don't want to be someone that's going to work on the floor factory and disappear, and that name John Smith's just gone. I wanted to leave a legacy and see what we can create in that, my 40 years or 50 years of my working career, and let's give it a red hot crack and let's go.
So tying this back to the hire industry, so we've been talking about the traffic business, but you also have LGC Equipment Hire.
Yes.
So what is the origins of that business then?
So that business came to life really December 2020, coming into the midst of COVID, and it took us probably 12 months to be able to get that business. All of our equipment's pink in colour, and the lead times to be able to buy the equipment, in a colour is always there. So it was a drawn out period. What our frustration was, and the reason we moved into hire was, if we go and send a traffic controller, or we're doing some night shift work, we go and send a traffic controller to one of the local hire businesses that were in town at the time to go and grab a lighting tower. That business might have 4 different brands of lighting tower. Then 11 o'clock at night, on that night shift, you're getting a phone call from your staff on the ground going, I'm not sure how to turn this lighting tower on, and our client's really unhappy with us. What are you going to do? So then, back in the day, in the early days, I'll jump in the car, race down a site, give them a hand. If I knew the brand of lighting tower, what it was, I'll be able to walk them through. But sometimes you don't even know the brand of the lighting tower coming to site. So for me, it was, how do we pick, let's go out there and pick the best products for the market that we want. So at the moment, we're running Bartco VMS boards, we're running JLG towers. I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to go and put 3 different brands of lighting towers in there, because when we either use it for ourselves as our business, or we're hiring it out to someone else. I want their guys to be familiar with our gear, and if they hire it this month but don't go and hire anything from us until, say, January 2024, they're still going to get that same product. They're still going to know how to turn that product on, and we're not going to have that lost time and that inefficiency that we'll see by swapping equipment out in different brands.
And so you mentioned your gear is pink.
Yes.
So I was in your yard today, and there's a lot of pink. Even your internal work vehicles are pink. The building's pink. There's pink everywhere.
Yes.
So talk to me about why you chose pink.
It was different. No one out there that I was aware of at the time really had the pink colour. We started seeing pink, Western Australia is definitely a mining town. We started seeing more, pink dump trucks turn up. Gina Reinhardt's even gone through and painted her locomotives pink. So we are seeing more and more pink gear coming. So it's becoming a more acceptable colour. I think if we chose the colour pink 20 years ago, we would have probably had a few noses turned up and going, oh, what are you doing? It's different, but it's in today's day and age, so it works in what we're doing. We're not picking a blue colour like other businesses out there. We're not picking an orange. We're not picking a yellow or a red. Pink was such a unique colour and was underutilised, so it was a bit of... it was definitely very different, and it was going to make us stand out there in the crowd. A few years earlier, I read an article about the UK motorway, or the UK main roads over there, and they would started painting gear pink because of theft and damage of gear they left on the road. So I think that probably had a little bit to play in it. But it was really, originally I was going to make it blue because blue was my favourite colour, and that's what it was going to be. And we were over in Bali, and I was sitting there having a beer with the old man, and he was the one that actually suggested the colour pink and said, hey, have you thought about the colour pink? And I thought, no, you're crazy. Why would I paint anything pink? And it took me about 2 months probably to come around to it and go, well, that's the colour. And that was over Christmas 2019, so 12 months before we started really getting gear into our yards. And then it was running around trying to find the right pink, and there was a fair bit of effort to put into to really coming up with that colour, and trying to be a little bit different and different in our industry and in what we do.
It's pretty obvious when you drive into your yard, everything stands out. We'll put a link in the description. There's no exaggeration that everything is pink.
Yes.
So it's good. I do like it. So then, being originally an end customer of a hire business and then starting a hire business that rents out various types of equipment, what were some of the things that you took into the business to say, I know the pain points that customers have when they deal with hire companies? What are some of the things that you straight away wanted to make sure that you didn't bring it onto the table with your business? And you spoke about having one brand of equipment as one example.
Yes.
Other things that you thought? The
things that we bought in there were definitely one brand per equipment or per piece class of equipment, but it was also reliability. At that time, there was a lot of old gear in our industry over in WA, in the traffic management industry. Gear that had been 5 years plus. We're talking probably closer to 10 to 15 years. So the gear had been paid off by these hire businesses. And even though we're dragging a bit of hire equipment to site, it's still a reflection on our labour business. And when you're pulling up with an arrow board that's got rust on it and wires hanging out of it, it reflects, even though we don't own that bit of equipment, it still reflects on what our guys and how our guys operate. Because if we can't turn that bit of equipment on, or that equipment malfunctions while we're on the road, that's downtime. And if we're running, overhead power line crews, or supporting overhead power line crews, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars an hour that can be tied up just because of that piece of equipment. If it's a lighting tower, arrow board, a variable message board, whatever it is not been able to be operational. And the other thing was definitely people. If we can bring the right people in and create the right systems within the business, I think we can create a better service to our clients. And it's all about, labour or equipment. It's all about service. If we don't have service in the business and we shut our doors and call it whatever, we're never going to get repeat customers. And customers are what open our door. So it's all about building the right service and supporting our clients and creating what we can create.
And then So maybe just to inform the audience, like what is your line of equipment? So when you go in there, you see little pink portable toilets.
Yes.
But maybe just want to run through different types of equipment you have, and maybe when you brought them in, like how did you expand and why did you expand?
Okay. So we started off with traffic equipment. So we started off with your variable message boards, arrow boards, lighting towers, portable traffic lights, VSASs, which are variable speed awareness signs. So we started off with all that stuff, and as you would with a traffic business, it started off being cross-hired back into our traffic business. From there, we moved into the sanitation realm. Within the traffic business, we've never been heavy in the events and never done many events in there. Moving into the sanitation space definitely opened the doors for the group of the businesses to move more into those event spaces. But the big drive of us to move into that sanitation space at that time was COVID. There was a shortage of portable toilets. The quality of the portable toilets that we see in Western Australia are definitely lacking. There's probably 4 main businesses in that portable toilet space. A lot of hire businesses have portable toilets, but I'd say there's probably 4 main businesses that focus on it. One of them's got a pretty good product. The other 3 really sit in the residential space and just don't have that product. So for us, it was about picking Australian-made for our portable toilets because they had the largest waste tank. They were the most plush-looking unit there at the time, and it was trying to build more from seeing what that market is, it was trying to build more of a prestige. We're trying to build a better service, I guess, in that industry, and by that service, with that sanitation, we're offering a better toilet. We are at the moment going through a bit of a change in the business and a bit of a different direction. We're now starting to bring access equipment into our business, so we've just done a bit of a deal with Sonoboom, and that's exciting. I'm actually really, really looking forward to see these pink dinosaurs turn up, and pink dinosaurs, and mate, that's going to be exciting moving into access, and the reason we've moved from there is because it's another step away from what our traffic management business is. But it's also, our traffic guys turn up to a site, and how do we get as much gear onto that site to be able to support that client and become more of a one-stop shop? So now we can pull up, we can close your road, we can go and supply your toilets for your guys to use. If you're doing bridge work or you're doing work at heights, now we can go and supply you with your EWPs. So it's all about supporting that client, and how can we help that client? How can we be that one-stop shop for that client, so that client then can go and achieve their goal and build what they need to build or fix what they need to fix? That's really the big drive for that.
So it really started off as just a supplement to the traffic business, but
Yes.
Now it's really growing into its own business, and I'm assuming you have some pretty big plans to expand.
Definitely. I'm very excited for the time that I go into that yard and there's too much gear for our WA market and we start loading trucks and sending them over east. There'll be a point in time, I couldn't tell you when that's going to happen, but there's going to be a point in time, and my goal for that traffic business was always originally was to build it into a national sort of business. There was 2 national companies at that time, really 3 national companies out there at the moment. But now with what needs to be done in traffic and how that traffic industry works, I'm happy to be that leader in WA and then take our rental business and really grow this rental business. I'm really enjoying the rental space, and yeah.
And I noticed when I walked into your branch, I saw a few Hire and Rental Industry Association stickers down there as well. So you were at the show, we caught up as well. So did you recently become a member? Did you?
No, I think we became a member as soon as we started the hire business. So okay. I think for industries out there, those associations are definitely a great thing for the industries because they bring the businesses together. And if you can't bring businesses together, that's when the industries suffer. And this is what I'm really liking about spending my time in the rental side and the hire side, is that the businesses talk and it builds a better industry. From talking about equipment and what brands are right, no one can go out there. Well, some people can go out there and go and buy every lighting tower that's manufactured out there and then work it out. But working collaboratively with other businesses by talking about brands or there's a lot of things businesses can learn from each other. And this is the rental industry is that's why I'm loving this industry. I'm meeting some really great people in the industry, and guys that I'd like to build relationships and friendships with for as long as I'm around, or as long as LGC's around. But that collaborative work of these businesses it's very exciting, and yeah, it helps the industry grow. It creates a better industry, because the industries that don't talk to each other and try and cut the guts out of their margins and really drag that industry down, they're the industries that suffer. They're the ones that generally the directors are stressed out, and there's just issues, everywhere, every what way they come, because the businesses aren't collaboratively working together to build the industry. If we don't build an industry, you don't build business. And I'm a firm believer of that.
What was it like when you truly understood the level of like cross hires or sub hires between businesses? Was that like a bit of a surprise on how willing your competitors were to help supplement your shortage of fleet?
Yeah, definitely.
Coming from the traffic side, that is, which is almost the opposite, yeah?
Yeah, there's a few businesses that work collaboratively in the traffic space, but nothing like we see in the rental space. Mate, it was interesting, and it was great. It was great to see an industry that even the biggest guys in the industry can't supply that industry. So it's always going to create that collaborative work and that collaborative move to move forward with each other. It's what I've learnt and what I've seen in the short period of time being in this rental game. It's the businesses that don't collaboratively work and want to be the big end of town, or think they're the big end of town. They're the businesses that really suffer in this industry. So if you can't collaboratively work with someone, and I know for me, we're not going to have enough stock. There's going to be points in time that we don't have enough stock in our fleet, that we're going to have to, and we do it quite regularly, that we go and cross hire. Because we've chosen the colour pink, I've got a minimum of 90 to 120 days for any bit of equipment I buy. So we, as a business, have to work with other businesses to see those fluctuations, because there's not too many times out there that that you're getting work 3 or 4 months out. It's generally we need it now.
And I guess if you want to collaborate with your competitors in providing equipment, if you start cutting prices, there's no way your competitor's going to want to support your business through sub-hire. And so is that something that you're mentioning, the people that isolate themselves, is that probably one of the traits that you might see, of them trying to undercut and not work with other people?
Yeah, definitely. The guys that think they can own town, they're the guys there that are undercutting, and very much that, they're the guys that we're trying. Well, they're the guys that suffer, because they end up going in too cheap to be able to cross-hire off someone, and then they realise that they've got too much gear running out of the yard, and then when they do start cross-hiring, that they're losing money over something that they shouldn't even be losing, where they could have scaled it back, had a third less work, or whatever the number is there that they've created for themselves, a little bit less, but it makes their life a lot easier, and it ends up making their bottom line more.
Yeah. So earlier today, we're chatting about sub-hire in general and whatnot, and then you were telling me a story about where some of the industry people that were trying to discount equipment, like you were sticking firm to your rates, and you were renting it to another rental business who were then had committed rates to their customer, and so they were actually losing money on the sub-hire, basically. And that was just so they could get their gear on site, and they thought they could win more business because they had portable toilets there. Like, when I heard that, I almost just thought, like, that's insane. Like, is that something you've seen before?
Yeah, definitely. And they're the businesses that don't collaboratively work with each other. That business in question there put some pink gear out. Our portable toilets are stamped with LGC on the side, but put our gear out on site. Bright pink, LGC all over them, and still took a hit, thinking they were going to further their business by being able to get more work off them. But if you're not making money off your hire, why are you there? It should never be. At the end of the day, they're not going to see that brand or this business's brand on that site. They're saying our brand on that site, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's definitely not sustainable.
And then, so what about on the transport side? Have you brought in your own trucks, or do you use external transport? And what have you done there?
No, we've brought our own transport in. So we want to be... we've brought our own transport in for the reason of delays. We want to have full control over our pipeline and how we control by getting our staff out and our equipment out there. We do use contractors when we're busy, and and that. But definitely trying to build our transport side, and I shouldn't say try and build our transport side. We definitely are building our transport side. So now that we've got access gear coming, we've got a couple of tilt trays coming. We run high-ups for our portable toilets. We've got our own vac trucks. And we try and do the whole thing, because hey, at the end of the day, we've got a labour force, and one of the big reasons moving in, I shouldn't say one of the big reasons, but another reason of us moving into the hire space was we had a lot of people in the traffic management space. You go from a basic traffic controller to advanced traffic controller, and then you become you can be advanced traffic controller on the ground, then you become a planner. But we wanted to give more options to our guys on the ground, and how do we upskill our guys, and how do we give them better opportunities out there in the workforce? And that was really a big push. And it was funny because I was listening to another podcast. A New Zealand guy who's got a podcast called Get Flush, and it's around the sanitation and portable toilet. He's done interviews with guys in Australia, New Zealand, America, Europe. And one day I was driving down to our Albany depot, listening to his podcast, and it was about interviewing what a pump driver is. And he jumps in this truck, and you hear the microphone turn on, and they're having a bit of a chat. And he goes, "Oh, what did you do before this?" And the guy goes, "I was a traffic controller." And a little light clicked in my head, and thought, Jesus, I've got a couple of hundred of them, of those guys. So it's a great opportunity there to be able to get those guys, upskill them, get them into a truck and get them out there pumping. Although it is a bit of a, people think it is a bit of a crappy job. Mate, I've been in the truck with the guys. I've gone and seen how they operate. It's really not that bad. It's a pretty cushy little job and a cruisy job that they really left up to their own device, and don't have anyone walking out of the office into the workshop going, "Why is this not done?"
Yeah, and then I guess on the pump out side, like really once you're stuck in that many toilets, the driver's got his run, but it's all about preparing the route that he needs to do, and setting up zones and having the different weekly and fortnightly or monthly pump outs, whatever it might be. The planning side becomes more and more important the more toilets you have, really.
Definitely, and as technology moves, we're seeing programs coming into the industry that really do change that. There's a local program to Australia that's working on something at the moment that's pretty interesting, but there's also, there's plenty of programs out there that can map it. There's another program over in the States called AliPro that's just specialised to the portable industry, but it really comes down to, how you hire controllers too. How true is that information that's getting put into your systems to be able to route that information? Definitely as technology changes, I think that side's going to become easier and easier.
So starting LGC hire and starting off on the traffic side and then building all the equipment up, like how's your purchasing mind sort of changed over time? Like trying to figure out like the right gear to buy, the ROI model and stuff like that, coming new into the industry.
When we first started that business, it was all about purchasing equipment that was going to give us a good ROI. If it was 52 weeks and under, that's the sort of equipment we were after. And the reason we were after that is we needed to generate, and still do need to generate, generate cash flow. But it was about to generate cash flow, so then we can go and lend against that and go and buy more equipment and build this business. This hire business is, we definitely want to build it into a sizable business, and I've still got another 30 odd years of my working career, and I really want to see what I can create in that space.
And then how has that changed? Like, do you still have that rule of thumb, or has that changed over time?
Yes, it definitely has changed. When we first started that business, it was all about buying high ROI equipment and getting that, trying to get that paid so we can build a base level there to really step this business up and create something. We are a traffic business, so we do use truck-mounted attenuators, TMAs, as they're commonly known, and we've always had them within our business. But we've made the effort now and started buying more of these TMAs. The TMAs that we bring into our fleet are incident response TMAs, but that allows us now to be able to get them into your main roads and into your incident response crews. And if we can have these trucks that aren't operated by LGC but are still associated to your government agencies, that's a billboard. And for this business, the big thing is presentation. As you've said earlier, all of our gear is pink. in that yard, and it is bright. It is bright. It is relatively new gear to the industry. But we want to keep that really fresh, that image of that we have.
And I guess the TMA is I guess you're saying how it's changed because the ROI on that is over a much longer period, but then it sort of gets you that image on the billboard on the side of the road, basically.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that you got into access with Cineboom. So one, what made you decide to get into access? And two, why did you pick Cineboom? Or Cineboom? Cineboom.
No, Cineboom.
Cineboom.
Yeah, Cineboom.
I think that's what their name is.
Yeah. No, it is Cineboom. That's a very good question. As a rental business or starting a rental business, we had looked at access a few times. I'd shied away from the idea of access for the reasons being of it wasn't our core business. It wasn't something we're known for. As we develop this hire business, we want to branch out and we want to become, instead of just being a hire business that supports a traffic management business, we want to be a hire business with a traffic management arm, and really be that leader in what we do. The reason we moved down into the access space is it's very much like traffic in the way of your regulations. Less people are on ladders. If you need to go and change a light bulb that's 10 metres high or whatever it is, you've got to use a bit of access gear. So it's driven by rules and regulation. And it kind of fits in what we do. We're a very safety-orientated business. The traffic business is about creating safe work environments and work zones for our contractors, as also the general public. The access gear is a high-risk piece of equipment. That is a safety piece of equipment for work sites. And it was trying to diversify from what that traffic space is. We really want to diversify, and as I've said before, we want to be LGC. We want to be a household name out in the industry.
Yeah, and then I guess Cineboom's listening right now, going, "Yeah, but you didn't say why you picked us."
Yeah.
So why did you pick them as a brand?
The reason LGC chose Cineboom to partner with was the array of equipment they have in their fleet or in their offering, but it was also the technology that we're seeing starting to come out of Asia. I've just recently been over, or I was recently fortunate enough to be able to go over to China and see the Cineboom factory, mate, and that was an eye opener. I have never seen a factory so clean, but so much automation. The AI technology that these Chinese factories have now was phenomenal. It was a robot bringing in your raw steel, to a robot cutting the steel, to moving down the line, to the robot welding that steel, and then going off and getting painted and coming back. The only time we really saw a employee in the factory was the electrical wiring, was more the fiddly sort of work, but the actual welding and the sculpturing of the metal was all done by robots, and it was phenomenal. The technology over there is definitely increasing, and that was the third time I've been to China. First time was 2012, and how far they have advanced in their manufacturing processes has been, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal.
And I guess earlier in the podcast, you were saying that you wouldn't buy equipment from Asia 10 years ago, and
Yes.
then here you are today buying however many bits of access gear you are. So obviously you've noticed the quality of the equipment evolve over time.
Oh, yeah, mate, it's definitely evolved. When I first started the business, we were running the brand of arrow boards. We'll go into arrow boards. The best brand of arrow boards, I believe, on the market, and has been for a few years, has been a Chinese brand. But back, 2014, when we started seeing this brand of arrow board coming into the market, mate, we had cracks welding, we had all sorts of issues with it. And it seemed to be through that COVID piece that a lot had changed and a lot of technology had changed. And it's probably because we couldn't get over there for 3 years to see what had happened and realise how these guys are moving so quick in their technology and how they're manufacturing.
And I think the lead time's quite good as well. Some of these brands, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, the size of the factory, the Cineboom factory that we were in, was That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. It was the size of, the suburb we were in here at the moment. We're sitting in Midland, and it felt like it was the size of Midland. It was absolutely crazy on how big these manufacturing plants are.
Yeah, I think you said to me yesterday, you showed me a photo, and then you were like, to get from here to there was 10 minutes. And I was like, walking, no driving.
Yeah, pretty much. It was...
to drive just to the other side of the factory, 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was... Mate, I was like a kid in a lolly shop looking at this stuff, especially, being in there and looking at this equipment. It was words can't describe on, how far advanced these guys are moving. We're seeing some of the American brands, some of the European brands. It doesn't matter what industry it is, and I'm not specifying an industry here. It doesn't matter what industry it is, but we're seeing, supply issues where we don't seem to be seeing those supply issues out of China. Yes, because all of our equipment is bright pink in colour, that we do have that delay of 90 to 120 days, if not more, for some brands. We recently bought some equipment, and it took 10 months for them to arrive here. But yeah, the manufacturing process and the shipping process of these Asian manufacturers are really stepping up there out there, and it's changing the game. It's going to be an interesting 10 to 15 years, I think, in front of us to see what the equipment is. But one of the conversations that we had earlier was about the ConExpo, and how many overseas manufacturers are now turning up at the ConExpo to promote their gear. It's changing times out there. It's exciting times. There's opportunity, those times create opportunity out there for people. I'm excited to see how this market changes, and I guess the economics of the world and the manufacturing world of the next 10 to 15 years.
And so finally, starting a business, growing it to 300 staff in traffic, and then starting a hire business and growing that into what it is today. Like, what advice would you give to somebody that was thinking about starting a hire business?
Mate, go for it. Grab the bull by the horns and jump on and go for it. The industry's great. I love the rental industry, and I love the collaborativity in that rental space of businesses working together to create a better industry. There are challenges. There definitely are challenges within the business. It's not for someone, it really depends on how large you want to grow that business and where you want that business to see and what future you see of that business. If you want to grow a sizable business in the industry, you're definitely going to need some sort of capital behind you to move into it. So just like we've done, I couldn't create what I've created now in the hire space if it was my first business. I've been lucky enough to have a successful traffic business that we've been able to lean on to be able to grow the business to where it is now. And it's all about now is growing that hire business, growing it. But one of the big issues there that we have faced through the time has been, I shouldn't say big issues. One of the challenges being out there is, and I enjoy this challenge, I really do, is seeing that bit of equipment going, yes, we're going to purchase that. Then you go out there and raise the capital to go and purchase that equipment, if it's internal capital or if it's external capital, and then getting that equipment in and then getting it out there and pushing it to clients and building it. But if someone came to me tomorrow and said they wanted to get into the hire industry, I would say go for it. It's been a great journey. It's only been a short journey for us in the hire space, but it's a journey that I'm really looking forward to travel down that road and see what we can create in this hire business.
Good that you got that passion. So thank you for coming on the Rental Journal podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having us, Mark. It's been a great afternoon. Thank you.